Hey investors, Dave Hathaway. Welcome back to the channel where we discuss real estate, investing, and building wealth. Today, I wanted to actually share how I use Google Street View to determine if I'm going to invest in an area, or more specifically, if I'm going to avoid investing in an area. And I'm going to share with you guys a bunch of different screenshots of what I'm looking for and how I determine, hey, that area is just not for me, just from a surface view. So this isn't always perfect, but in my experience, this has helped me avoid a bunch of areas where there's drugs, there's crime, there's stuff that I don't want to deal with. Having the perspective now that I didn't have the perspective before, a lot of the areas that may be classified as like C or D areas, sometimes the returns look amazing. And as an investor, I used to chase just monetary returns, go, wow, there's 30% returns there. I caveat that by saying returns are great on paper, but often those returns that look amazing, those 35% returns end up turning down to 15% returns, and you're dealing with a bunch of extra mental stresses. Maybe it's break-ins, maybe it's dealing with the local drug dealer on the corner, maybe it's your contractors being like, I don't want to work here, or a contractor that you like to work with that says, I don't want to work in that area. All these things add to, hey, this investment isn't as great of a return as I thought it was, and sometimes it's downright bad investment. So the first thing that I look for, and I'm gonna give you a mnemonic, it's THC. And maybe this is from back when I was a police officer, but your THC is what you're looking for. Trash, hanging out, and chairs. Those are the three things that I'm usually looking for that I say, I'm not investing in that area. So if we look at the first picture, we got a couple of guys on bikes over on the right side in front of a corner store. And all these pictures are gonna be in Baltimore City. But again, you can use this strategy anywhere, in any city, in any town, and just go down Google Street Views. The only time you can't use this is if Google hasn't. So when I look at this, I see people on bikes, I see a bunch of people on the corner, I see chairs that are just sitting that are empty, and I would automatically say any 4 streets around here, straight ahead on the sides, are uninvestable for me. I would assume that there is some sort of drug activity going on this street, as this is a major street in Baltimore. So I just avoid this one altogether. The next one you see, same thing. You got chairs out in front of the property over on the right-hand side. You got a bunch of people sitting on the step just hanging out. You got people out in front of a pickup truck that are hanging out. Just a lot of hanging out. I also noticed a bunch of trash next to the gutter. So again, these are the 3 things we're looking for that we are gonna say, hey, I'm not investing anywhere near that block. That's gonna be a problem child. I know this block, I've driven by it, so I know that active drug sales go on over here. This is not an area where I would get out of my car, and this is an area that I would want to purchase a rental property. Maybe even if it was a cheap one. And funny story is 2923 Parkwood Avenue was for sale. I did look at the numbers. The numbers were ridiculously cheap. Do you know why they were ridiculously cheap? Because no one in their right mind would want to rent that property. If a tenants came to this property, if they didn't know the area, they drive there, they go, ooh, I don't like it, there's drug dealers. Or if tenants did actually sign a lease and go in, they'd realize they're gonna have to deal with all this hassle, people sitting on their front porch, dealing with the drug dealers. So they would not want to rent there. They'd break their lease and they'd leave, so you'd go back and you'd have to find another tenant. So that is another one. This is another main thoroughfare, East North Avenue, and it's Bel Air Road. And this is a known, this is where there's a rehab clinic or something over here. Every time I go past here, it is like ridiculous amount of people hanging out. I mean, it's people that are recovering, it's people that are seeking drug treatments. It's people that are seeking to get and buy drugs in the same area. And you'll just see there's just a ton of people hanging out over here on the side. There's no bus coming to pick them up. That's just how this area is. I wouldn't buy anywhere close to this area because they're walking through the neighborhoods to get over here to buy drugs. So if you're buying in any of the surrounding blocks, guess what? They're walking by your property. If you got a project going on, They might break into the project, they might steal your stuff. So all of a sudden that 20K rehab turns into a 30K rehab, turns into 40K rehab. And you also have to figure out, you got to put cameras there and a bunch of other stuff. The guys, maybe your crew that you're working with loses their tools. That's going to piss them off. So these are just the things that we're looking at. There was you know what? It's just not even worth investing in that area. Moving on. So this one's actually hilarious now that I actually am looking at this photo. This one has a no loitering sign posted on the front door. So obviously somebody was pissed off that people are sitting on their steps. So they put up this huge sign, and then all going down in the next two properties, there's people sitting on the step, hanging out. It's usually the case when you're looking at Google Street View that the people that are doing nefarious activities are staring at these Google Street View cars that are coming to do pictures. It's not always the case. These could be completely innocent individuals, but why take the chance when you're investing and spending your hard-earned money into a neighborhood? I would just avoid it altogether and say, hey, I don't like to invest where there's a lot of people hanging out. This is again that same block we looked at from the first picture, and this is slanted looking down the other way, and you can see that there's somebody hanging out on the step a couple houses into one of the interior blocks there, and it's focusing on the chair. But again, this is an area that we're just gonna say, hey, I don't even want to deal with that. My tenants aren't gonna want to deal with that. And usually you can tell in the police world, we used to call it our spider sense. If you drive these blocks, and it's the same thing when you're going through Google Street Views and you're clicking all the way down the street. When you're driving these blocks, the hairs on the back of your neck are gonna stand up and they're gonna, why is that dude just staring at me? And a lot of these areas where they actively sell drugs, you'll see people raising their hand up like this saying, hey, 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 trying to flag you down. I never stop for those people. I just keep going because I don't want to get carjacked. I don't want to get anything else. But they're trying to see if you want to buy drugs or purchase a prostitute or a bunch of other things. But that is going to be another red flag. If you see people that are trying to flag you down a lot when you're driving through a neighborhood, you can just say, hey, this neighborhood's not for me. I'm going to go ahead and pass on. I'll invest in something else. There's so many properties to invest in that you don't have to deal with so much crazy aggravation. So just if you think you're going to have aggravation, that's a sign to say, hey, I'm going to move on, unless maybe somebody's handing you the house for free. This is another area. And this is, you can see just three people hanging out in between cars. I'm familiar with this area in Baltimore, Tioga Parkway, over by Madalman Mall. Active drug selling, but this is what you see. You see people hanging out. You see right in front of the building, there's a bunch of just big trash bags that are hanging out over there. Again, you're looking to avoid the THC. The trash, the hanging out, and the extra chairs. I'm sure if I had other pictures of this area, there would be a bunch of chairs somewhere in this area because that's where people hang out, waiting for people to come pick up drugs. All right, this is another area, and the things that I want you to observe here is I would see, hey, there's this person drinking a soda, hanging out on the wall. You got a bunch of people hanging out in front of this store, the Hummingbird Cafe, and there's just way too much hanging out. And I think if you look all the way over in the alleyway, there's somebody popping out of the alleyway. But these are the things, and they're kind of hard to see. But this is off of Bel Air Road. You can just say, hey, there's gonna be more aggravation than I want investing in this block. Another thing that I want you to know is in Baltimore, it's block by block by block. So sometimes you can have a really rough block, and then 2 blocks away, it can be amazing. There's a bunch of homeowners. And a lot of times when you have a lot of homeowners, they snuff this stuff out. So if you know that a block is all homeowners, they're not gonna deal with people hanging out all the time. They're gonna call the police, and they're gonna bother them so much that they have to move where they're selling drugs because they're not going to want to deal with the headache either. If you guys find this content valuable, we'd love it if you'd hit the subscribe button, press the thumbs up, as it helps us grow the channel and reach more people.